Wild West love stories. Your child needs shelter, and my heart needs you. The autumn wind whipped down the main street of Dry Creek, carrying red dust that curled into little spirals, slamming against weather-bleached boards. On the steps of an abandoned church sat Nora Hale, knees drawn tight beneath a threadbare cloak that barely held back the chill. Beside her, 6-year-old Jamie had drifted into a restless sleep, head heavy on his mother's shoulder, breath rasping with hunger and weariness. For 3 days, they'd survived on nothing but scraps of cornbread and cold water. The boy's eyes had sunk deep, as if the darkness inside him might swallow what little light remained. Nora tugged the cloak tighter around him, heart twisting at the sound of an empty stomach clawing from within. Once, she'd had a home in Colorado. Once, she'd believed promises of safety. But the mine explosion had stolen Luke, her husband, and left her with more than grief. It left a mountain of debt. The railroad's men had hunted her mercilessly, forcing her south with Jamie clutched to her chest, praying for a fresh start. Dry Creek offered no such thing. There was no work for a widow with a child. Shop doors closed with pity at first, then with indifference. Heavy bootsteps echoed. Nora lifted her gaze. A tall man stood before her, broad-shouldered, face lined beneath the shadow of his hat. Dust clung to his boots, reins loose in one hand. He removed the hat with a slow nod. His voice was deep, steady. "Wyatt Kane. I run the Sea Ridge Ranch, north of here." Nora's grip on Jamie tightened. Her voice cracked. "I'm not asking for charity." Wyatt shook his head, calm, gray-blue eyes meeting hers. "Not charity. I need someone to cook, to tend the garden. I've got a 10-year-old daughter, and your boy needs a home." Then he added, awkward but plain, "My house is missing a heartbeat." He gave the faintest, rueful smile at his own bluntness, then continued, steady as stone. "What I can offer is a solid roof, warm meals, and safety. In return, I need a woman's hand to keep the fire burning here." Nora said nothing, caught in the pull of his gaze. Between the cold and the dust, the fear and the heavy weight of her past, she felt, just barely, a fragile thrum of hope inside her chest. The road to Sea Ridge stretched across yellowed hills where crows circled like smudges of ink in the pale sky. The wagon wheels groaned on rough ground. Nora sat stiff beside Wyatt, clutching Jamie, who held a bundle of firewood the man had given him. Wyatt drove with the silence of a man long used to distance, not a word wasted, as if he knew speech itself might shatter the thin thread holding despair at bay. The ranch house rose beyond a stand of birch, sturdy, 2-storied, smoke curling gently from the chimney. The barn was neat, the fence lines straight. Then the door flew open, and a girl ran out, dark hair braided tight, eyes bright as polished stone. "Pa," she called, then stopped short at the strangers. Wyatt's hand rested on her shoulder. "This is June, my daughter. June, this is Nora, and young Jamie." June studied them, then bent to Jamie's level. "You like horses?" she asked. He fidgeted. "Never tried." June grinned, wide and certain. "Tomorrow, I'll teach you." Inside, the air was warm with cornbread. Nora hesitated at the wash basin, watching clean water flow, luxury she hadn't seen in weeks. Through the window, she spotted an empty plot of soil, once a garden. Her fingers sank into the earth, damp beneath the surface. "This ground's still alive," she murmured. From the doorway, Wyatt's voice came low, edged with something unsaid. "I haven't touched it. Not since Ruth passed. Nora turned, her eyes landing on the portrait of a woman above the hearth. A kind face, a gentle smile. Her heart pinched, not only with sympathy but with guilt, for she was stepping into a home that had once belonged to someone else. Jamie tugged her sleeve, whispering, "Mama, it smells so good here." The child's words brought sudden tears to her eyes. By the second noon, Texas sun hammered down, cracking the earth into dust that rose like ash. Nora knelt in the side garden, hands muddy as she drove stakes into rows for cabbage. Sweat slid down her temple, but for the first time in months, her spirit eased with the rhythm of familiar work. Jamie sat nearby, fiddling with a wooden horse June had carved for him. Laughter of children mingled with the cluck of hens, then hoofbeats, rolling thunder across the plain. Nora's head snapped up, breath locking in her chest. Through the haze of dust came 3 riders, long coats flaring, wide-brimmed hats shadowing their faces. The lead horse reared at the gate, spewing a storm of red grit. A gaunt man with a blade-thin smile leaned from the saddle. "We're looking for Nora Hale, debt to the railroad, Colorado. Word is, she's hiding here." Nora's blood froze. Jamie clutched her skirt, eyes wide with fear. Before she could speak, Wyatt strode out onto the porch, shoulders squared, hand resting easy on the grip of his revolver. His voice rolled out low, steady as a hammer striking oak. "This ranch is mine. The woman works here, honest and rightful, under my roof." The leader, Barkley, snorted. "Law says property dies, debt lives on. We just need her." His eyes cut sharp toward Nora. June stepped in front of Jamie, 10 years old but fierce as fire, clutching his hand tight. Nora trembled but held her spine straight. "Take me, and what do you give back for a child without a mother or a home that just learned to breathe again?" Barkley spat in the dust. "We give you peace." Wyatt's hand tightened on the revolver strap, jaw set like stone. Peace isn't bought by selling out the innocent. Behind him, ranch hands emerged, rifles cradled, forming a line as solid as fence posts. Wind ripped through, swirling the dust into a gray curtain. Silence thickened until Nora could hear her own heartbeat pounding. Barkley narrowed his eyes, then barked a dry laugh. "We'll be back. And when we do, either she leaves or something else does." He yanked the reins, and the 3 riders wheeled away, leaving behind the stench of rust and threat. Nora stood frozen, hands caked with earth shaking at her sides. June slipped close, laid a steady hand on her shoulder. "Don't be afraid," she whispered. "This house doesn't fall easy." That night, Dry Creek held its breath. Wind battered the siding. The porch groaned in protest. In the kitchen, firelight flickered over Wyatt's weathered face as he stirred a pot of stew. Beef and carrots simmered, but the taste of tension was stronger in the air. Nora sat at the long table, fingers laced, eyes drifting toward Jamie asleep in his chair, and June carefully tucking a quilt around him. Wyatt set the ladle down and stepped forward. His voice came slow, measured, like posts driven into hard ground. "They'll be back. Maybe with law, maybe with guns. The only way you and Jamie stay safe here, by law, is if I put my name next to yours." He paused, eyes steady. "I'm asking you to marry me." Nora stiffened, lips trembling. "You're proposing with no flowers, no sweet words." Wyatt exhaled, gaze never wavering. "I don't have flowers. What I have is a solid roof, the Cain name, and a promise. I'll stand between you and any man who comes knocking like tonight." A shaky laugh escaped her, tangled with tears. That sounds more like a bargain than a vow. Wyatt shook his head, firm but gentle. Not a bargain. An invitation. I want a partner, not a possession. I want Jamie's laughter on the porch. I want June to have someone to guide her. I want that garden green again. If you refuse, I'll drive you back to town at sunrise and still pay you a month's wages. Her throat tightened. All her life, choice had been stolen from her, by explosions, by debts, by closed doors. Now a man stood before her, giving her the right to say no. She glanced toward the window. June, rocking Jamie to sleep. Ruth's smiling face, watching from the mantel. You know, I carry nothing but cracks, she whispered. Wyatt took one step, keeping respectful distance. Cracks are where the light finds root. Wind whistled through the seams of the house, but inside the kitchen, Nora pressed a trembling hand to her chest. For the first time in years, her heart answered with a steady beat. Dawn spilled over Dry Creek, pale light spreading across the ridges like a wash of milk. The air was still heavy with dew, yet the yard at Sea Ridge Ranch buzzed with quiet purpose. A long table had been set out on the porch, where Reverend Crowley, hair silver, spectacles sliding down his nose, opened his ledger. Nora wore a plain dress June had pulled from her late mother's trunk, and in the hearth inside, Ruth's portrait seemed to smile its approval. Jamie stood close beside June, his eyes wide, shining with nerves and wonder. The thunder of hooves shattered the stillness. Barclay and his men returned, this time with the town lawman in tow. Barclay's gaze cut sharp over the scene before him, and a mocking laugh split the morning. What's this circus supposed to be? The Reverend lifted his head, voice clear as a bell. A marriage rite. Nora Hale is about to sign her new name. Nora Hale Kane. Barclay sneered. A wedding doesn't erase debt. Wyatt stepped forward, shoulders broad, steady as a wall. No, it doesn't. But it puts us on one side, and this side won't blow away like sand. He set a leather pouch on the table. Silver coins clinked hard. This is the first payment. The rest I'll shoulder. But if you plan to drag her off by force, you'll have to ride through this whole family first. From the barns, ranch hands gathered in silence, rifles at the ready, eyes resolute. The lawman shifted, cleared his throat. They're within their rights. You've no cause to seize her. Barclay's jaw tightened. He slammed his hat down, wheeled his horse, and rode off with nothing but a curse tossed to the wind. The ceremony went on, bathed in the rose-gold light of morning. The vows were plain, nothing flowery. Just words of protection, of partnership, of staying. Yet each syllable drove into the ground like a fence post, solid and true. Nora's voice shook as she answered, then glanced to see Jamie and June holding hands, giggling as if the world beyond had never known shadows. When the Reverend closed his book, a breeze swept across the garden rose Nora had planted the night before. Tiny green shoots shimmered with dew. Nora leaned lightly against Wyatt, listening to the strong, steady beat of his chest. It wasn't a ballad of romance. It was a hymn of endurance, of choice. And here, on a land that trusted only what stood firm against the wind, their love had finally been given a name.